Hi everyone, I hope you all had a great New Year's and had the chance to take a break and relax. Tonight I bring you some of my favorite highlights, but this time there are no bloopers. Like the Christmas special and tonight's episode, it will feature guests from the second half of 2022. I met some awesome people involved in motorsport last year, and it was great to hear their story as everyone has their own journey. There are so many great stories out there of determination, achievements, and most of all, passion for what they love doing. So, in 2023, this year, I look forward to continuing to pursue my passion, and I can't wait to get back racing again. I also look forward to speaking to more people involved in motorsport. So, if you'd like to come on the show or if you're interested, shoot us a message on Facebook or any of our socials. So, let's get into these highlights. I hope you guys enjoy it.
2019, right when COVID hit, we went from karting to XLs, which was probably a good thing because we didn't waste more time in karts while we weren't racing. We sort of made the change, bought a car, and we competed in one race in 2019, the first round of the state series before the COVID. But that got us a chance to relook at the car that we bought and fix it up for the end of the year where we came back racing. What attracted us to the XL series was just a cost-effective way of racing. You could pick up a car, they were quite available at the time and at a good price, and you could get circuit racing in a tin top race car very, very easily. Yeah.
So you said that you obviously rebuilt it. So do you do much of the work yourself, or do you have a crew help you as well?
Yeah, so I'm a qualified mechanic myself. I actually got qualified last year. So, and I used my dad's workshop to work on my race car. So I do all the work myself. My dad helps me a little bit, but mainly me. So we've built the engine, we've set the car up, scaled the car, put all the brand new suspension in that this year we're running. And yeah, pretty much when the car was a write-off, I built it up from scratch. Yeah.
How was it your dream to race in an RX-8?
One of my dreams, because I work as a rotary mechanic, so of course I had these RX-8s coming in all the time. And we actually had an RX-8 Cup car in once, and we built it, and I was just sort of like, I'd love to do this. And the first one we got, we actually bought. So we bought an already built one off Rick Shaw, and it was a bit daunting because just being thrown into a category, like I hadn't really done all that much track stuff, but once I was out there, I was hooked.
Yeah, it's like the first time you go into a race car and you really love it, you just get hooked onto it and you just love it so much. I remember the first time I hopped in the Formula V, the speeds that you do, so crazy, and you just fall in love with the car.
See, I was pretty slow for my first one, but I felt like I was fast. But yeah, it's definitely the faster you get, the more you enjoy it. I have found. Like I'm still not super quick compared to the other competitors in the category, but I have my little group that we all race at the back and we all have the best time. Like we all get out and we're hugging each other and like clean racing, and that's exactly how it should be.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, most certainly. And I think I certainly appreciate it now when I've gotten further up the ranks and driving cars which don't have a lot of grip. Those fundamentals you learn in go-karting, whether it be in the rain or on the dirt, it comes in handy later in life. So
That's incredible. P5 in your first weekend of XLs. Did you build the car yourself or did you buy it from a previous racer?
we bought it from a previous racer. We bought it about 7 days out. It was exactly 8 days out from the first race meeting that we did. So we bought the car, had it on the trailer, went over it, went to the track the next day, got my license, entered, and we're on the track the weekend after for my first meeting. So it all happened really quickly and I had no idea what to expect. But it was it was great fun, and that's really what got me hooked,
Mm.
certainly in car racing. Yeah, it's that sort of racecraft and knowing where your car's positioned on the track is important, and you learn that from when you start. But particularly when you get into a V8 supercar where you're strapped in tight, you can't move your head very far, you really rely on your mirrors, and the mirrors aren't really that good in the V8 supercar. You can't really see too much, so you've just got to be aware of where the cars are, particularly on a first lap. So you learn that from state level racing, whether it's XLs or V8 supercars.
I was just about to ask that, you know, we'll mention that you got the drive at Bathurst. Is it a track that you've always wanted to race at?
Bathurst is the holy grail of motorsport in Australia, right? It's something you grow up watching supercars on TV, and you look at that. One day you want to do that, but I don't think I ever sort of sat there knowing that I could do it one day, but I always hoped that maybe I could. And then before you know it, I was on the track in the 86 at Bathurst. That was a pinch myself moment that weekend. The first lap across the top of the mountain, your stomachs, I got quite sick, to be honest. The first time I drove around there with the roller coaster effect, your stomach sort of rises up, and it's something you'll never experience at any other racetrack. It's really crazy.
Fast forward a few years, he started his own karting team, and I was kind of like the spearhead for it, if you like. And a guy in the team was a father of one of our team members, and he had raced Formula Ford in the 90s against, you know, Craig Lowndes and all those sorts of guys, and had a relationship with the team in Sydney, and basically came up to me one day. I was racing KZ at the time, and said, "Oh, what are you doing next year?" And asked a few questions, and basically gave me the number of a guy named Paul Liston, who runs Listec Race Cars. They design and build their own cars in Sydney. And he said, give them a call. They're looking for someone. And I thought it was a bit strange because, as you'd know, Formula Ford, like, it's like a 60 grand operation to do a state series. And I'm going, I don't have $60 to rub together. So called Paul. He invited me out for a test, which I thought was the coolest thing ever, because in go-karts, Formula Ford is like F1. It's crazy. You look at it like it's F1. I did anyway. So I did a test. It went really well. They invited me back for a second test. And it just sort of spiraled from there. They were very good to me, and we went on to do some good stuff. And that was my original break. So very lucky to come across those guys. And it started with a phone call. I remember getting the number and looking at it on my phone and thinking, I won't call it. What a waste of time. Called it, and here we are. So always dial the number that you're given.
Oh, well, that's some good life advice, man. I'll keep that one in mind.
Try not to forget where I came from, and everyone who's helped me along the way, I try and stay in touch with. The Gilmores in Queensland, the Paul out here in Sydney with Formula Ford. So, yeah, look, I've had an enormous help along the way, and you know, all I can say is if you're upfront, honest, and be a good person, then help gravitates towards you. So if you keep chipping away, you'll never know where you'll end up, especially with how young you are as well.
Well, thanks, Josh. And I guess thanks to everyone who helped Josh along the way. Obviously, he's now in TCR doing great. So, yeah, when did you start endurance racing?
Okay, so I was just a normal person. I was obviously more involved. I was involved in all sorts of motorsport, but my interests were with rallying, and I was doing club rallying, and had my Mitsubishi Lancer, and I was doing sort of state level stuff in Australia. You know, you always had the dream of being Australian rally champion and world rally champion as a young guy. And then in 2007, I got an invitation through default to do Peking to Paris with Jerry Crown. Jerry and Dad were supposed to be doing Peking to Paris, but the Chinese had a rule that no one over 65 or 70, I can remember, could drive. So as a result, Jerry needed a co-driver that was young enough to drive the Chinese leg. And the rules of the rally were you weren't allowed to have a driver change or you'd be excluded from the results. So I had to be there the whole way through. And that's how I got involved. It was just through luck. I had no interest in historic cars and classic rallying and all that. I wanted the latest and greatest and be the fastest in the world. And it all just kind of evolved and changed. That event, whilst on paper was a disaster, was one of the best things I've ever done. And when you're doing motorsport and traveling the world and seeing different countries and cultures, and you're not just going down the freeway, you're always on back roads and seeing places you'd never normally see. I was a day into the outback China, and I just thought, this is the best thing ever. It was just fantastic, and I was so lucky to be there that I've done everything I can to keep doing it, and here we are. I've done probably over 10 big international endurance rallies around the world, and I've just love it every time I go.
You've won that rally 3 times, which is quite incredible to think about. And how did you transition into cars? And what was your first race car?
Okay, so as a family, we don't have a lot of money. So our biggest thing was, like you, we can't go pay a big team straight up just to be able to go to race a car. So my first car was it was like a 1993 Daihatsu Charade. And we did hill climbs. So I started doing hill climbs. I used to go to a local kart track and just learn how to change gears. So they were okay with me going on with the car, and I used to just go up to third, up to fourth, back down to first, up to third, fourth, just keep going up and down the gears. And then, we started doing hill climbs and just track days to learn.
What do you believe is the best piece of advice you could give to drivers who are looking to improve on their driver skills?
Yeah. So definitely, like, one is patience. I see a lot of people that just got into the sport, and I coach a lot of people like this, and they've just got in. It's like their second race, and they're saying, why am I not up the front? And I sort of got to say to them, like, see the kid that's winning, he's been racing since he was 7. You're 13 and you just started. He's got 6 years on you. So I think patience, and then don't be afraid. Do get coaching. So a lot of people are scared to go up to like the big teams or things like that. Like, there's a lot of privateer coaches like myself. But don't be afraid to go up to a team and say, hey, can I do a day coaching? Can I do this? Because you will find a benefit, and it will fast track that to get you where you want to be. So I think, just definitely patience though is the main thing. Don't try to rush it. It'll come.
Yeah. And you also done a bit of dirt racing. Do you think it helped you with car control?
Yeah, no, it's been really good. So I think, like I said before, I actually even started karting. I would paddock bash in the mornings before I even went to school. So I learnt car control and dirt and stuff before I even thought about doing motorsport. So, but definitely, going into Speedway, it definitely gives you a different set of skills. And I find, going into the rain or having, changeable conditions doesn't really affect me too much because, that's what Speedway is. Every lap is different. So it's definitely been good to have that behind me. And it was only 4 short years, but definitely, helps me for the future. It's the best way to go, mate. Like, to have a championship behind you is definitely good. It's an accomplishment, but to win and move forward and challenge yourself every year, it's sometimes not rewarding because you don't get as many trophies and you don't get that number 1 on your door. But I'm 30 and I've had a 20-year career at the moment in motorsport, and to look back, I probably wouldn't change it. It's been cool to have so many classes and know so many people by doing all this stuff. It's you can walk up and down the pits and talk to 100 people. It's the journey, it's not the trophy at the end.
100%. And I guess it's all about, going out there and enjoying your passion. At the end of the day, lots of people, like, I'm out there to win, but, when you go out there and have a lot of fun, like my family, we all go out there as a family and we have a great time. So it's so good, to bring home a good result, but it's also good just to have a bit of fun while you're out there and have a good weekend.
Well, fun breeds passion as well. If you're not having fun, you're not passionate. And if you're passionate about your sport, you're always going to do well. And to be honest with you, that's actually one of the reasons I got out of Super 2. I lost the passion. At the end of last year, I just couldn't justify going back. And I knew there and then it was either time to pack up or find a new class.
What's the goal for Trans Am this year?
Well, this year was just to be competitive. We didn't actually put a figure on it. And, if you look at the progression of our results this year, we've sort of started at pretty low at Tasmania. But, now we're in the top 3, essentially, last 2 rounds in terms of pace, and fighting against GRM. They've got 4-car team with Hearn and Owen Kelly, with Ambrose in their corner. So we are getting there. Sydney practice 1 will P1. So we're there or thereabouts. We've just got to fine tune it. And I'm really enjoying it because, Super 2, the level of the equipment between P1 and P10 was just ridiculous. Like the variance was just silly. So with this class, it's down to the team and the driver to make the rig that you got better. But you can't engineer anything. It's about making the very finer adjustments that the car has to move up the grid.
Yeah, so did you have any family that raced before you?
Yeah, my dad's name's Andrew Clifford. He raced Formula Ford in the late 80s, and then he moved into Formula 3 in the early 90s, Australian Formula 3. So that was sort of how I was exposed to the sport, watching Grand Prix racing and stuff like that. And then I just thought, this is just the sickest sport in the world. How cool is this? And then after nagging for a while and working hard for a go-kart, we went testing, started racing, and now I've well and truly been bitten by the bug.
But if you could race anything in 5 years' time, what would you like to be racing?
Well, my ultimate goal is Formula One, and because my dad used to race, I've been very lucky to have to enjoy some of the connections that Dad's made. And be able to make connections with them myself. So I'm very lucky in that sense that we've got some friends overseas that are helping us put together a path for myself. So I plan to go overseas next year and do the British GB4 Championship. That's the plan. We're still a long way off that, but we've got to have a plan. We do have a path. I just got to make it happen. So that's the plan. We'll see what happens. Got a long way to go to get to that point, but the ball is rolling. So in 5 years' time, I'd like to be in either the F1, F2, F3 European ladder overseas.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. And, it'd be great to have another Aussie having a shot at Formula One. So with the drag racing car as your first car, I'm guessing, your race car, do you remember the feeling the first time you made a pass?
Before I left the start line, shaky, nervous, feeling pretty sick in the stomach. As I crossed the finish line, couldn't wipe the smile off my face. Really excited, shaky again, but this time from adrenaline, and just really, really wanted to go again and again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, you had to put your racing on hold when you were unfortunately diagnosed with cancer and you underwent treatment. It must have been really tough for you and your family. So how did how did racing and motorsport help you through that time?
So on my good days, when I was going through chemo and that, I would actually just sit in my car. I'd sit in the car. It was sitting on the hoist. It was in the shed, and I would just sit there. And anyone who has a race car knows that it sort of has a special smell about it, all the tire smell and that fuel smell and everything. And I would just sit there and I'd soak it up and I'd close my eyes and just have that smell. And that was a good feeling. And on really good days, I'd actually go down to the racetrack. I'd hang out with other friends and I'd support other friends that were racing. And if I couldn't, then I'd just get on the internet broadcast and I'd watch it and I'd send them messages and stuff like that. But just, hanging out with friends and just knowing that I was going to get back in the driver's seat.
So obviously, you were very committed, like I'm going to get back on track soon, and you knew the time would come. So I'm so glad the treatment went well for you and you've achieved much since then. And as well as your business, you're also involved in an awesome charity called Therapy on Wheels. Can you share a bit more about what the charity does and your involvement?
So, a couple of years ago, we had a bit of a discussion about selling the race car and getting a new one, because I'd had it I'd been racing the same car for about 10 years, so it was time for a change. And we decided that we'd like to share what I got out of motorsport to other people going through a similar situation. So the idea was to build a custom-built brand new car, something that nobody else had ever done before, and actually have it set up to take passengers for a ride down the drag strip. So we chose a car that hadn't been on the drag strip before, which is the Mercedes-Benz that you can see in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, set it up with all the safety gear and everything so that I can take it racing, but I can also race it with the passenger.
Yeah, that's, it's really cool to see what you've done, and you've even be a stressful time for everyone. So, the smiles that, on people's faces must make you also smile just a little bit.
Absolutely. It's a really, really good feeling looking over at the passenger. You only just get to see their eyes through the helmet, but you can see somebody is smiling with their eyes. It's a very good feeling.
Where did your passion for motorsport begin?
Actually, both my parents were involved in motorsport, primarily speedway. So I was really born into it. Sort of grew up around racetracks and things, and never really had a chance. I guess I was born with the disease. Yeah.
When did you first get the 308?
A 306. So it's actually a 306 GTI
right.
6. Yeah.
My bad.
So no, that's all right. There's so many 3.0s and 4.0s and 5.0s in the Peugeot lineup. So I bought the 306 GTI 6 about 10 years ago as a road car. Actually, I found it through a vehicle classifieds part of the work intranet at the job I was working at. I knew that those cars had a bit of a cult sort of following because they're great little hot hatches.
Mm.
Pretty much when I drove it, I realised, wow, this thing would actually make quite a quick little race car. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at your Instagram again, and you've got a lot of parts on there that you seem to build. So, I'm looking, and did you print the block out yourself, or is that just
like that? So the engine, so the engine and the it's still running the standard block, standard head. Obviously they're heavily modified and dry sumped, but I do design and manufacture as much of the car as possible. That's always been sort of the spirit of the project for me. I've always loved driving. It's quite clearly never going to be sort of my profession as a driver. So for me, the motorsport journey is probably 90% of it is the engineering challenge, and then 10% of it is racing what I've built.
So you were telling me that you raced boats for 20 or so years, and what got you into racing boats?
I'd always grown up around boats and I really enjoy my social skiing, and it was just sort of progression of that. I had the need for speed, so we just sort of started building boats and got faster and faster and faster.
What type of engines did you run in the boats?
Yeah, really different engine configuration in boats compared to cars. The rules are the capacity sizes are a lot bigger. So we had a 510 cubic inch Chev big block with twin turbo.
But back to when you sort of got your career started, you are family-run team, preparing your own cars, working on your own. Do you have some friends and family who help out as well?
Oh, absolutely. We've actually got a really good bunch of blokes that all want to be involved in the car. So my son Jacob, he's 21, so he's runs the show on the race day. And then I've got Colin, good mate of mine. He's a mechanic, and he built most of the car with me. And yeah, another mate of ours, Will. That's Jacob, one of Jacob's best mates. He's been there since day one as well. And another mate, Sean, comes along for the ride as well. Cooks us all lunch and breakfast.
Yeah, I've seen him in the tent before, early in the mornings.
Attracted me to improve production was the closeness of the racing. It's a big field, and there's lots of cars, and they're all different sort of variations of cars. Are competitive, and it's just it's a pretty cool class.
We then got COVID out and all that with lockdowns, and now I just sort of had a bit too much time to think when I was thinking there. I'm like, I need a bit of to get in something a bit quicker, because I needed, if I wanted to do what I was doing in the States, I need something that's lightweight and fast. I had the dirt modified, which was fast, and the wingless sprint, which was lightweight, but it wasn't too fast. And the dirt modified is extremely heavy. It's about, I think, 1,000 kilos, about a ton, where the sprint car is about 630 kilos. So then, this pipe dream and idea to run a sprint car, and I had no idea how to pay for it. And then, thankfully I had a really good deal come up. Dad tried to help me out a little bit. We just put he sort of owns most of the motor on the deal, and I sort of pay for all the costs in the car and the running costs and then all my awesome partners have helped me out with pretty much running the deal. So that's pretty much where we led to.
I'm in a similar boat. Like my parents, they fully support me though, money wise. Obviously because I'm only 15, so they really do help me out. But most of my partners are what keep me out on track. And for some people out there who, like myself, I guess, who aren't really that knowledgeable with Speedway, do you do the same sort of racing as Cam Waters? What he's been doing between his V8 racing?
Yeah, I've raced with Cam a few times in the All-Star. So the sprint car run here is a 360. So it's instead of the aluminium 410 like the car behind me, so that's about 900 horsepower. The wing car race here is a steel block 360. So that has about mine's a bit lower horsepower than others because I don't have the best of the best motors. About 660 horsepower. The others are about 700. I've ran with Cam a fair bit. His car's only based about 20 minutes from me, if that. So down in Carrum Down somewhere. And I'm pretty good friends with the crew chief, Lindsay Trotter, as well. So Cam's been good racing. He's quick timed a lot. Jesus, wow. He quick timed a lot, and I was always 12th or something. But I know I'm a bit of a racer, not a qualifier, so I sort of found my way to the front eventually, and I ran wheel to wheel with him a few times, and he races you really clean too. Like, I can't say that enough about him. You get some guys who just come into the sport and they just sort of puff their chest out and they just try and muscle you out of the way, and then out they go. So I think Cam will be around for a long time.
For me, really. So Stars of Karting was just brought in via Fox Sports, and that's where Chad Naylon also got his start as well. So and then Brock Feeney's come through there recently. Who else? There was Bryce Forward in Stars of Karting. It was quite a good thing back then. It just originated from CIK back in the 90s, and I've loved karting. I've never lost love for it. So I've got a Facebook marketplace go-kart that I bring out every now and then just to have a fang in. So I absolutely love go-karts.
What really pushed you to go to Formula Ford?
For me, I don't know. I was looking around at classes for a while. I actually didn't jump straight into Formula Ford, actually. I went to legend cars on dirt at Parramatta Speedway for a bit, and that got me used to the way the Formula Fords drift around the track. But I had a good go at that. I got up to like 5th in an A main at one stage, which was pretty cool. And then that deal fell apart for me. I just did like a lease deal with legend cars at the time, and then I went into Formula 4 with Tim Beale at Anglo Motorsport. Went into one of his lease cars. Then I was working as a nightclub promoter And then after that, I worked multiple jobs as well. I was working in a nightclub and managed to save up enough cash to go 50-50 with my stepdad in a car. And then I bought my own Formula Ford and have been, selling and upgrading my cars ever since, and just love the class really. And, I'm now, I think, a board member of FFA, so it's pretty good. But for you, I think it's great because you're interviewing kids in your age group, which will help them learn from you, and then interviewing guys like myself and, you know what I mean? It helps, Noah Sands loved it. There's been a few kids on your podcast which has really loved it. So for me, I think the difference between you and I is as you said, I have a different kind of genre, but we're both the same really. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you. It's been a while. Good to catch up with you.
100%, Matt. And, you might notice that I found this awesome looking top that, I'm wearing that finally fits me after all these years ago. So, I think it used to start down at my knees and, now I've finally grown into it as I got a bit older. But how did you come up with the name Swaglord Racing?
To be fair, it was my dad used to wear a snowboarding coat to the track at Pucka during winter. And it had a nice furred hood lining. And people started calling him that name, Swaglord. And then so basically I wanted a name that stuck out for a race team, and that word was floating around at the time, so I stuck with that, and then decided that was a perfect name for the team.
As I mentioned earlier, you are studying RMIT, doing aerospace engineering. As a part of this course, you have been developing, or you were developing a Formula ASE. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and what's involved?
Yes. So basically, the Formula SAE program, it's the largest world engineering competition worldwide. From all universities across the world, there's hundreds of teams in all countries. Basically, the aim is to build a prototype open wheel race car each year. There are three main categories, basically combustion powered, electric powered, and then autonomous vehicles. The RMIT Electric Racing, the team that I'm with and I was the chief engineer of last year, basically we build an electric one it's four-wheel drive, in-wheel hub motor, so it's got one on each wheel, makes 1,200 newton meters of torque, so it's got a fair bit of go. Fully student built, student designed. It's got they're basically, I describe them to people as miniature Formula One cars. They're full push rod suspension, big slicks, and full aero package and everything like that. So it's a really, really cool car, and it's the best way for sort of students to get involved with sort of real world engineering activities, I guess.
So normally I'd ask how it all began. So where did it start for you in motorsport?
Where did it start for me? I didn't really have a choice. I was born into a motor racing family. I grew up with it around, with my dad being a professional, quite a successful driver growing up around that. And there was nothing else that I wanted to do. So, grew up never did any go-karting, just sort of had to forge my little path. And the guy that really I owe it to and giving me an opportunity to first race a car was Paul Morris. So I was working at Norwell, one of my first jobs up there, and eventually convinced him to give us a go and a drive in one of his speedway cars on the terms and the conditions that if I broke it, I had to fix it. And I learned a lot about myself and what you put into, your goals of going away racing. And
what do you like most about the Trans Am series?
Again, like if you look at it, it's pretty much single make. It's very controlled technically. So sealed engine, sealed gearbox, sealed tyre. It was control tyre. So it really comes back to the technical window that you can work with your guys. they're fast cars. They're proper race cars. So we do have, a few different avenues of that we technically can tune the cars with. And it goes into spring rate. They've got data, and you really have to work pretty hard and have a good relationship with the people around you to get the most out of both yourself and the cars. And they're not fun. They're not slow cars. They're really, for what they are, they're quite quick. We're doing 11s in qualifying around Bathurst, and I polled it at 30, high 33, or high 32 at Phillip Island, which is, it's almost Super 3 time. So they're quick cars for what they are, and they're still on a bi-split tyre. So they're really quite cool, not being a radial. They move around, and you've got a lot of driver in them. There's a few things that they need to tidy up technically with the cars, but yeah, it's a really good thing. They look good, they sound good, they drive good. And to be honest, I think it's a better category than if you go down the path of development series of Super 2. You need to find $1 million a year to get an opportunity to race. And these cars are very well controlled in, they don't have a $70,000 or $80,000 front upright on them, which is the key to making the car turn. And if you're not in the right DVS team at the right time, you can look like pretty average. So these cars are cool, how they're technically managed, and they put on a real good show.
This might be my 10th year, I think it is. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but I've loved every minute of it.
10 years and you've made a lot of progress, I'll tell you what. So, you started on two wheels, as you're saying, maybe 7 years old, 6 years old, I'm going to have a guess.
Yeah, I was about 7. Yeah, I think it was when I first started doing it pretty seriously. And it wasn't, the transition to four wheels didn't come till I was about 13, I think it was. So I did a fair share of two-wheel stuff. And then I suppose the proper motorsport journey that I took, where I started building a bit of a profile, was in the cars. So yeah, I wasn't setting the world on fire in go-karts. I was just sort of doing standard stuff and getting a couple podiums here and there. But then once I jumped into a car, everything just sort of seemed to gel a lot more, and everything made a little bit more sense. And as silly as it sounds, I think jumping into a car sort of slowed everything down a little bit. And as much as you're going faster, everything feels like it's a lot more slowed down. You can sort of really finesse that craft. And, go-karts is full on, zipping and zapping between corners and things like that. So once I stepped into cars, everything just sort of made sense. And I've loved it ever since. Look, the Kids with Cancer Foundation has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever aligned myself with. And I truly do, I want to push to try to get as many drivers and people like yourself to align with a charity, because, you're in a position where you have access to hundreds of thousands of fans and people that all follow motorsport. And so for so long, I raced selfishly, and all I was doing was promoting myself. But now when I race, I'm doing good and I'm promoting a fantastic foundation. So I really believe that more people should get around a foundation, but the one I've chosen to align myself with the Kids with Cancer Foundation, obviously it's a really close subject, and it's a tough one to talk about, because obviously, what kids that are suffering from cancer is horrible, and it's such a tough thing that those young kids are going through. And
so did you think that one day you'd grow up racing, BMWs, because you were so involved around them?
I think that was always in the back of my mind. Like, it was kind of a following Dad's footsteps. My brothers did it too, so it was maybe not much choice there involved, but I'm certainly not complaining.
Yeah. What do you like about BMWs? Obviously, you grew up around them, but is there something that you really like about them?
It's funny because it's kind of all I've known, but I do really love the handling of a BMW. I feel like that's something that you don't get. I mean, obviously, lots of other cars do handle really well, but I feel like with BMWs, they've always got a really great handling. You can feel everything through the steering, which I really love about certainly the E30s. They're fast, but they're not they're not like crazy fast,
Yeah.
like Trans Am fast or something like that. So they're a good, I think they're a really good grassroots learning car. Yeah.
But do you do much of the work on your car yourself?
I try to do as much as I can. I'm pretty lucky, obviously, Dad being a mechanic and being right in everything. I can get a lot of help when I need it, but I always try and be there whenever Dad's working on the car to make sure I'm there, because I like to learn things and try and do as much as I can do, helping him without the car. It's usually a case of, the car doesn't get touched unless I'm there, which is really good because it gives me an opportunity to learn how to do all the different things as well.
Is there anyone in motorsport that you look up to that inspires you to be a better driver?
I can't go past my brothers and my dad. For me, motorsport has always been a family thing, and they've all got their names on our championship trophy, and for me the goal is to follow in their footsteps and do the same. So it's not reaching too far beyond our own category or my own family, but for me it's always been about the family stuff. So I just want to be as good as they are. I want to get my name on that trophy, and that's the goal for me. So I kind of look up to them and the advice and stuff that they give me.
Yeah, well, everyone starts at a grassroots level, and you have done a lot in your career, but now that you're back in 86s and you did do RX8 Cup, it's you're back at a grassroots level, which is still great racing.
It was many moons ago. I mean, I'm 38 now, so it's been a long time for me. But I was 9 years old, and my old man took me to a higher go-kart track for my birthday, and I guess I did okay. And we went to Newcastle Kart Club pretty soon after, and started racing at a club level, and did the usual, club level to state level to national level, and then was lucky enough to drive for Tony Kart Factory and race internationally. And due to a really strange, I suppose, mismanagement between CIK or FMK, the international licenses, and Australia, aka. I went to seniors at 15, but in Australia, I couldn't go to seniors till I was 16, and I'd already gone to seniors under international rules. So I got stuck in this void where I couldn't race in Australia. I basically had to go back overseas again, which I wasn't really in a position to do. So my family, my mum, dad, and I decided to go to cars, and that was what led me to Formula Ford. And I moved into Formula Ford. My first race was actually at Indy on the Gold Coast, believe it or not. Not the greatest place to learn, but anyway.
Yeah.
Certainly was a baptism of fire, and yeah, Formula back in those days, I guess, it's probably why I respect RX8 and Toyota 86 so much in the current era as options for young drivers and XLs and Pulsars and all these ways to step from go-karts into cars. In my day, it was pretty much you did Formula Ford or really there wasn't much else. I mean, there was the Mirage series and you could come in through improved production and things like that, but they certainly didn't lead the same way, the current categories do. So hence me developing 99 Motorsport is very much about trying to bring drivers through as a progression plan out of go-karts. And it's great to have it these days. And that's why I'm supporting it and investing in it.
Cool. But like I said in the intro, you seem pretty passionate about motorbikes. So where did the passion start for it?
So when I was younger, my passion actually started on four wheels in speedway cars, so stock car racing with my uncle. And then as I got older, I started volunteering with the flag marshal, the volunteer flag crews, the officials. And as soon as I saw the two wheels, I was like, I've got to try that. So from four wheels on the dirt, from speedway to being a race official, to seeing the motorcycle racing, to I've got to try it to get on it. So that's where I've always had racing as a young kid, but just on four, and now I'm on two. So which I've been doing since I was 20 and I'm 38 now. So I've been doing it a long time.
But are you starting to see, a lot more female riders, biking, racing now on the bikes? And how does it make you feel knowing that you're, showing it to the guys and there's more coming along?
Love it. There's a lot more females now, and in road riding overall as well. So coming into racing, there's quite a few girls that come up to the 300s and they have a go on a superbike and, things like that. So the numbers do steadily rise, and then, they might drop off for a bit, but we've got a few that are hanging around and having a go. So so it's good to see. And they come out and they run the girl only ride days at Broadford, so that gives them an opportunity to have a go on the track. And if it's something that they want to be interested in, it opens the door for them. I can have a race on the track. I've now ridden the track on my road bike, and whether or not they progress forward in Sydney, there's a lot of girls that race up in Sydney. When we were up there, I was quite surprised with how many girls are having a race up there. So that's really good. And so they're coming through. It's hard work, but we're getting there. So it's good. So just always open the door for opportunities for ladies to have a play.
So my dad is he's a specialist mechanic, and he's always raced. As I said, it's Alfa Romeos is in my family. So I started, believe it or not, I did my first ever drive on a racetrack when I was 12, and that was at Calder. So from the age of 12, I was on a racetrack in a converted road car, an Alfa Romeo. And I just sort of, Dad was teaching me. I was in my passenger seat for probably the first, I think it was first 2 times I went to the track at Calder. It used to be open on a Wednesday back then. You used to be able to go down, pay your entry fee, do laps, and because they weren't part of CAMS, they were part of something else, they allowed me to go in early. And I just raced that for a little while before moving into Formula Ford. I was 16. So put it this way, this is how, we're winding the clock back here. So when I first started Formula Ford, I was in the same team as Lee Holdsworth. He was in Formula Ford. That's how long ago it is. Not saying he's an old bloke, but you know what I mean. This was 2005. So yeah.
But have you raced overseas, or would you even like to if you haven't?
Oh, love to, but I haven't. No.
Yeah.
I wish maybe one day. Who knows? Maybe maybe GT racing, maybe Vantage Racing, who I'm driving for at the moment. The KTM might step overseas one day. I'm not sure. It would be very cool, but look, I'm just super thankful to be racing as I am at the moment. So
yeah,
whatever comes my way is amazing.
Yeah.
I raced Daniel Ricciardo, by the way.
Oh,
back in the day.
Back in the day.
That's how old I am.
What was he like to race? Bit of a dirty guy.
I raced him in Formula Ford, actually.
Oh, right.
In Formula Ford. He wouldn't remember it. Sandown. It was both of our first national Formula Ford race. 2005 Better Electrical Sandown 500. Can you believe it?
Yep. If anyone here knows Daniel Ricciardo, tell him that. All right.
Yeah.
I doubt anyone does, but right here.
Yeah, he won't remember it.
I'll meet him next year at Albert Park.
We had a battle for like 14th and 15th. No word of a lie. You can look at it on that soft. It's I got the better of him, but he, it is what it is. It was the first race ever.
If you got the better of him, he won't remember.
Hell no. But what's weird about him is I didn't even know. I was racing. Didn't even know anybody. I was a young kid. I was still in school. I was in year 11 at school. I was 16, 15, whatever I was. And and then a few years later, I see that, Daniel Ricciardo is part of Red Bull, and I was like, what? I swear I raced that guy. And I looked it up and was like, I did. I didn't even think anything of it. And then a few years after that, he's in F1. As soon as he went overseas, he's just exceptional. Like, just dominated.
But what was the transition to cars, and where did you get started?
So when I turned 12, we looked at a couple of different cars, and Dad, being a fan of Poss and Vaughan, obviously always a fan of the Subarus, as you can see. And so we bought a GC8 WRX. It was just a road car. We paid $5,000 for it at the time, which is dirt cheap now. And we just started doing motorcars, carnacrosses. From the age of 12, we did a year when I was 12 of doing the motorcars and the carnacrosses as well as racing go-karts. So we did sort of a bit of both. And then we dropped the go-karts the following year. Just did all the car stuff. So just motorcars, carnacrosses, like, as you know, that's all you can really do in a car at 12, 13 years of age. And we just slowly progressed with the car. Like, we started off with a basic road car. and then we just did things like we put some suspension in it, and then we put some seats in it, and then we put harnesses in it and a roll cart. And just slowly, you put tires on it and that sort of thing. And then it just, as I said, it just snowballed from there. So then started doing autocrosses when I turned 14 and rally sprints and things like that. And then it all just keeps plottering along until where I am now.
Where are you planning on going from here? Will you continue to compete in rally over here? Would you like to go overseas? What's sort of on the cards?
Yeah, there's a lot of planning to do on that front. Look, we're weighing up at the moment whether to move overseas or to stay in Australia. I love Australia, obviously. I love where I live, and I'd never want to leave here. But as well as that, it's my boyhood dream, and I've got to follow it over to Europe. So I'm keen to travel as well. So it'd be cool to roll all those things into one. So working all that out now. If stay in Australia or move overseas, because if I stay in Australia, it's going to be a lot of flying back and forward, but I could potentially do more events. So there's just so much to weigh up. So that's where we're at the moment. Probably, just weighing it all up, working it out towards the end of the year.
Mucking around, but I know a few kids used to get their bikes and scooters and do a fair bit of, riding around afterwards, and couldn't stop racing, so they did a bit of bike racing afterwards.
Oh, 100%. I think some of that stuff still goes on now, but I think it's a really good thing. I think it's how you build relationships in racing. It's the very early stages of building relationships, and although it's you look at it as a kind of a social thing because you're hanging out with your mates, down the track that ends up helping you because some of your mates could go on to do really great things, and they kind of end up dragging you along the way. So it's your first kind of steps in networking and making those relationships. And when you start progressing through motorsport, you realize that some of those skills that you had making friends in go-karting kind of help you in the business world when you start to look for sponsorship and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just one of these things you learn as you do 86s. But, you did also mention the V8 Super, so it obviously would have been very fun to drive. Can you tell us a bit about it?
The Utes, that was a really cool opportunity that came up. Obviously, three-seaters racing, seaters have a lot to do with the category, and obviously it was kind of a no-brainer to get some of their 86 guys through the category just to kind of help on their development pathway. So my teammate Harry Gray had a bit of a steer this year, and then it was my turn to jump in, and they're a beast to drive. I must say I was one of the naysayers when they came out as the turbo diesels, but now that they've got this new LS3 V8 in them, they're a completely different beast altogether. It was awesome. They've got about 500 odd horsepower at the wheels, so they've got a lot of power, but they've got the aerodynamic efficiency of a brick. So they're not that fast in a straight line, but they're just super powerful. It's like driving a proper race car. And from the feedback that we've gotten from certain drivers like Cameron Crick and Aaron Borg, and even we've had Andre Heimgardner have a steer of the car, all their kind of feedback has been really positive, and they've actually related some of the driving characteristics to a supercar. So I see the category going really far in the future, and seeing it being a little bit of a stepping stone into if you wanted to go towards supercars, I definitely see it being a bit of a stepping stone.
The off-road buggy racing done in all states of Australia or just up north?
No, so we don't have a club up here, so we have to drive to Alice for each race. So it's 15 hours to go to the nearest race. So
and like I said, you guys wanted to compete in the Think Desert Race, which is one of the biggest desert races in Australia. Have you been there before as spectators, and what is it about the race that makes it super special?
We've been there how many years in a row now? Maybe 4 or 5. And that's when we first decided, we were just nagging Dad. We were like, Dad, can we just get a buggy? Can we just get one? And he just never got around to it. And but I think, I don't know, it's just the atmosphere. I think being out in the desert, we love Alice Springs, and racing buggies, we've grown up driving just around around the tracks here, through the bush and stuff. So, obviously competing is something I like doing, and racing, especially with Mia, is just, on the bucket list.
Yeah. So another thing I have down, just for the viewers who aren't clear, Rihanna, she does the driving and Mia does the navigation. So I guess there's been a lot of trust between you two. So what's it like in the passenger seat, Mia?
Oh, I've always driven with Rihanna, so I'm kind of just used to it and kind of knows how she drives. So I guess that's just how it's always been. All you got, yeah.
Coming from a family where your mum and dad were both involved in motorsport, what was it like growing up?
It was pretty hectic. I've been basically nearly every single day of my childhood was at a racetrack in some way, shape, or form. Like, Dad ran and managed Wakefield Park for, I think it was 10 years, and then he built, owned, and managed Marulan for another 10 years basically after that. So I've been working at racetracks my whole life, as well as driving at them. So yeah, it's been unreal. So I went to America in 2018, so I think I was 20 at that stage. When I was 16, I made the jump to midgets and midgets in Australia. So I just started running the senior categories, and like jumping from a 110 kilowatt Toyota front wheel drive junior sedan to a 400 horsepower 400 kilo midget. It was very eye opening. It was very cool, but I had a lot of really good times running that car.
But in 2019, you actually decided to switch to circuit racing. So why did you decide to make that change?
Being quite naive back then, I thought it would be easier to find sponsorship, which it has provided that it hasn't been. I thought that, like, circuit racing, you generally get more TV coverage, you get more, just a lot more benefits in general. But after doing the last 2 years in circuit racing, I sort of I'm a little bit more skeptical about the whole sort of deal. Plus, you get prize money for speedway, and you get tow money, and you get all that other stuff. Whereas circuit racing, you get nothing.
Was the Excel your first car, and why did you decide? Why did you decide that to race in the Hyundai Excel category?
Yeah, so I always loved Excels. I always loved the whole category, and I've just enjoyed doing all the hill climbs and super sprints, and hopefully in a year or so time the bigger class will be a thing for me to go to. But I love all, like, the Excel class down here. I love working with the guys, doing part of their social media stuff and everything with my photography side. So it's just a good environment, and they're just a good car to start off in. Like, a lot of the V8 guys started off in Excels and then went up.
Yeah, 100%. So do you remember much from that event?
I remember, because down here we have a program where it's called Kana Kids, where you can learn to drive on the Saturday and then you race on the Sunday. So it's like you can pay for both of them together. So you can pay for the Kana Kids and then you code Kana Cross. So I learned how to drive on the Saturday, and then the Sunday I did my Kana Cross.
Have you taken photos at the racetrack, and how did you get into that? And you still doing photography as well as racing?
So I got into it talking to just some people online that just do, like, motorsport photography, and just seeing people do the videography and everything like that on TikTok, and just, like, photography. And I've really enjoyed it so far, because it started off just by hiring a camera from school, and then eventually for my birthday I got my own camera. So I've done a little bit of work towards the end of this year with the Hyundai Excel category down here, managing their social media, along with taking photos for them, and just some of the drivers themselves, just doing photos for them as well.
It starts to get more expensive. I know that by first hand, but yeah, go-karting will definitely teach you a lot. And, unless you're over in Europe, then you can start talking about going from go-karts to Formula One, but it's still a very money hungry path into it. I always say, with especially a lot of people, is, where do you expect your motorsport career to go? Do you want it to be a short burst bang, like a firecracker? You try for the top, and then if you don't get it, you just fall down. Or do you kind of look at, I want to be doing motorsport for a very long time? Should we be looking at more budget friendly series? There's no credit to you, yes, or to us, I should say, or to anyone. You might not make V8 supercars, but there's nothing wrong with being, in a smaller category for many years.
And I have a question about earlier in that response. You were talking about restrictions and whatnot. I heard that in Aussie racing cars, when you win a race or you win a few races, they actually put a restrictor in your engine to try and bring you backward.
Yeah, they actually do. And some people might not like that. But the whole thing is with Aussie racing cars, like you said, how much you like them, because we're an entertainment category. You're not doing anyone any favours if two guys go out the front and absolutely blitz the field. And the best thing about that is it stops people spending insane amounts of money to try and take off in the field to try and win races and embarrass everyone as well. If you've always got a rope pulling them back into everyone else and restricting them, no matter how good you are, you'll be pulled back into the grid to make the racing all entertaining. So, and it's a popular thing that's worked in many different categories. I know touring car masters will actually limit how many revs you've got in the engine, so they'll knock 500 revolutions off your top end. It was very popular in NASCAR where they did restrictor plates, very similar to how they do the Aussie cars as well. They've come out with a new system this year. Everyone has to run restrictors of some sort because you'll just keep blowing the engines if you don't. But the last round at Adelaide, say if you win a race or you're top three, they'll give you a bigger restrictor for one cylinder. If you top three again, they'll give you another restrictor. If you go again, they'll just keep giving you restrictors and weighing you back to challenge the racing to make it good. And everyone understands it in the category. Everyone wants to keep the racing short, sharp, and fun. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to sell a product, and that's our racing and that's our category. If our racing becomes stale, well, it might end up like some of the other racing categories that are out there that people aren't really interested in. So, it's definitely one thing that they do, and it's worked very successfully. And it's definitely worked in people's favours.